There is a taxi still working the streets of Nagoya, with more than 1 million miles on the original engine, and the liquid that kept it alive costs about $6 a bottle. Most people will spend $4,000 replacing a part that was never supposed to break, because the repair manual quietly stopped telling them to do the one thing that would have saved it. So what did the car companies take out of that manual, and why did they do it right about the time your warranty runs out? My name is Kenji Tanaka. I fix cars. I have fixed them for more than 40 years. First in my father's garage in Nagoya, then in a taxi yard where the cars never stopped running and never got to rest. My father fixed cars. His father fixed the first trucks that ever came to our town. In my family, a car is not a thing you throw away. It is a thing you keep alive. And I am going to tell you how we do it, because almost nobody outside our trade is told the truth about it anymore. Let me start with a picture. A driveway on a Saturday. A man is standing next to a car with a little over 100,000 miles on it. The car runs fine. The paint is good. The seats are barely worn. But there is a shudder now when it shifts from second to third. A little hesitation. A bump he feels in his foot more than he hears. So he takes it to a shop. The shop plugs in a computer, and the man behind the counter says the words that end the life of more good cars than rust and crashes put together. He says, "The transmission is going. You are looking at $4,000, maybe $5. The car is not worth it. Time for a new one." And the man believes him. Why would he not? He drives to a dealer that weekend and signs papers for the next 20 years of his life. A car that had another 200,000 miles left in it, easy, is sitting in an auction lot by Monday, crushed by Friday. I have watched this happen 10,000 times, and here is the part I carried like a stone for years. Early in my life, I did it too. When I was young and sure of myself, a customer brought me a car, and the manual said the fluid inside the transmission was filled for life. Sealed, never touch it. So I never touched it. I did everything else right, and I let that one thing sit. Because a company with a big name printed the words, "Never touch it," and who was I to argue? That transmission died at 140,000 miles. I could have saved it with a bottle that cost less than lunch. I did not, because I did what I was told. That is a mistake I have spent the rest of my life making sure other people do not repeat. Quick word before I go further. The old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book you can buy in our pinned comment below. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. So let me tell you what really happened to that car in the driveway, and to mine all those years ago. The transmission was not dying, it was starving. Not for gas, not for oil. For a thin red liquid most people have never seen and could not name if you woke them at midnight and asked. That liquid is the whole reason the car moves at all, and it is the reason the car stops moving for good. And almost every driver on the road treats it like it is not even there. Here's the thing about a modern automatic transmission. It does not run on gears the way people picture, metal biting metal. It runs on fluid, pressurized fluid. The whole thing is a hydraulic machine. That red liquid is what presses the clutches together, what carries the power, what cools the parts, what floats the tiny passages open so the thing shifts smooth. The fluid is not a helper. The fluid is the machine. And like everything that works hard, it wears out. It wears out from heat. Every time you drive, the fluid gets hot. Every time it gets hot, it breaks down a little. It gets darker. It gets thinner. It stops protecting. Do that for 100,000 miles, with fluid nobody ever changed, and you are running a very expensive machine on liquid that has turned to burnt coffee. The shudder that man felt in his foot was not the transmission failing. It was the transmission crying out for the one thing it needed, a drink. Now here is the question I want you to sit with, because the answer is the whole reason I am talking to you today. If a $6 bottle can save a $4,000 part, why does the manual tell you not to bother? Why did the words change from every 30,000 miles in my father's day to filled for life today? Nobody made the fluid better. If anything, it works harder now than it ever did. So who decided you should stop changing it, and what did they get out of you deciding to stop? Stay with me, because the answer is not an accident, it is a plan. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let me tell you what filled for life actually means. It does not mean the life of your car, it means the life of the warranty. That is the whole trick, sitting in plain sight in 3 innocent words. Think about it from the other side of the counter. A company builds a car, they put a warranty on it, say 100,000 miles, or a certain number of years, whichever comes first. During that time, if something breaks, they pay. So what do they want? They want the car to hold together perfectly right up to the last day of that warranty. And then it is your problem. And if the car happens to need a $4,000 repair at 140,000 miles, right when you might otherwise keep it forever, that is not a tragedy to them. That is a sale. Because a man staring at a $4,000 repair on an old car does not fix it. He buys a new one from them. Now, I am not telling you a man in a dark room drew up an evil plan. It is simpler and colder than that. It is just numbers. A car that lasts forever is a car they only sell you once. A car that gives out a little after the warranty is a car they sell you again and again for the rest of your life. Every choice flows downhill from that one fact. And Filled for Life is the smoothest, quietest, most polite way ever invented to make sure the fluid that keeps your transmission alive is never, ever changed. When people hear me say this, someone always pushes back. Banned, they say. That is a strong word. Nobody banned anything. And they are right to push. So let me tell you exactly what I mean. I do not mean there is a law. I mean the instruction was removed. Open a maintenance schedule from 30 or 40 years ago, and you will find the transmission fluid change printed right there, every so many miles, like clockwork. Open a new one, and the line is gone. In its place, sealed, or lifetime, or nothing at all. They did not make it illegal. They did something quieter. They stopped telling you to do it. And a thing you are never told to do is a thing that never gets done. That is how you ban a habit without ever writing a law. You just take it out of the book. Now let me tell you about the system this comes from, because the country I learned in did something strange. In Japan, there is an inspection called Sheiken. Every couple of years you must take your car in, and it is strict and it is expensive, and it gets more expensive the older the car gets. The idea was safety, but what it does in practice is push people to give up their cars young. 10 years, and many owners let the car go, not because it is worn out, but because keeping it costs more than the car is worth on paper. So where do all those cars go? They do not die. They are barely broken in. They get loaded onto ships and sold all over the world, and the people who buy them cannot believe their luck. A 10-year-old car from Japan with low miles that drives like new. Why does it drive like new? Because the culture that raised that car keeps a service book like a family Bible. Every fluid, on time, written down, stamped. The Sheiken system was built to retire cars early. But the habit underneath it, the religion of changing the fluids on schedule, is the exact thing that makes those cars nearly impossible to kill. The country lets them go young, and the rest of the world drives them another 20 years. That tells you everything. The car was never the problem. The neglect was. So here is the counterintuitive truth, and I want you to hold on to it. Your car is not wearing out. Your car is being retired on a schedule, and you are paying for the funeral. The million-mile engines are not special. There is a Toyota truck in America that crossed 1 million miles, and the owner was handed a brand new one. And when the engineers pulled his old engine apart, they were shocked at how clean it was inside. He did not do anything magic. He changed the fluids. Every time, early, forever. The taxis in Japan that run past 1 million kilometers are not built from some secret metal. They get their fluid changed every 40,000 kilometers by men who would be ashamed to let it go longer. Cheap and simple beats expensive and complicated every single time here. A $6 bottle against a $4,000 repair. An hour in your driveway against 20 years of car payments. The dealer sells you lifetime fluid. The taxi mechanic changes it 4 times before you would change it once. One of them wants your car to last. Guess which? So now you know why. Let me show you exactly how. This is the part where I stop talking about the problem and put the tools in your hands. The first thing you need to know is the name of what you are about to do, because if you do the wrong version, you can hurt the car instead of helping it. What you want is called a drain and fill, not a flush. Write that down. This matters more than anything else I will say. Here is the trick, and it is the one that trips up even good shops. If a transmission has gone a long time with old, dirty fluid, the gunk in that old fluid is actually holding some worn parts together, like grime holding an old door on its hinge. If you go in there with a machine and blast every drop of old fluid out all at once, a full power flush, you can knock that grime loose and the transmission can fail within days. People do the right thing at the wrong time and kill the very part they were trying to save, and then they swear that changing the fluid broke it. It did not. The flush broke it. The neglect before it broke it. Drain and fill is gentle. You drop the pan or open the drain plug, let out the fluid that comes on its own, which is usually about a third to a half of what is in there, and put the same amount of fresh fluid back. That is it. You are not blasting anything, you are just swapping a portion. Then you drive a while, and a few thousand miles later, you do it again. And again. Over 3 or 4 gentle changes, almost all the old fluid is replaced, slowly, the safe way, and the transmission never gets a shock. On a car that has been ignored, this is the only way I will touch it. What does it cost? A quart of good transmission fluid runs about $6 to $10. A car takes a few quarts per drain and fill. A drain pan to catch it is maybe $15, and you own it forever. So call it $20, $30 for a job a shop would fold into a $4,000 death sentence. Here is the one place you cannot be lazy. You must use the exact fluid your car calls for. This is not like oil where close enough works. The wrong transmission fluid will destroy the transmission as surely as no fluid at all. Every car maker has their own spec. If you drive a Toyota, it may want a fluid called WS. Something else wants something else. If you do not want to chase a dozen bottles, there are trusted universal fluids made for exactly this. And Valvoline MaxLife is the one I have watched hold up in the taxi yard for years. But even then, you check that it lists your car on the back. Read the label. Match the spec. This is the one place a 5-minute mistake costs you the whole job. Now, the transmission is the big one, but it is not the only fluid quietly killing cars. There are 3 more, and almost nobody touches them until it is too late. The first is your coolant. That is the colored liquid, green or orange or pink, that keeps your engine from cooking itself. People think it lasts forever. It does not. Over years it turns acidic, and acid eats your water pump and your gaskets from the inside. Change it around every 100,000 miles. Or on the schedule in your book. And you will never meet the $2,000 words head gasket. The trick here is, you do not even have to wait for a problem. Old coolant looks rusty or cloudy instead of bright. If you open the cap cold and it looks like dirty dishwater, it has already been eating your engine for a while. The second is your brake fluid, and this one scares me because it is about stopping, not just lasting. Brake fluid drinks water out of the air. That is its nature. Over 2 or 3 years, it fills with moisture, and moisture rusts your brake lines from the inside and makes your pedals soft in an emergency. Change it every 2 to 3 years. You can buy little test strips for about $8, dip one in, and it tells you by color if the water is too high. $8 to know your brakes will work when a child steps off a curb. There is no better money you will ever spend. The third is the oil, and I know everybody knows about oil, but here is what they get wrong. It is not the brand. It is not some magic additive in a bright bottle. It is 2 boring things. Change it on time and never ever let it run low. Once a week before the engine is warm, pull the stick, wipe it, push it back, pull it again, and look. That takes 30 seconds, and it is the single cheapest thing you will ever do to make a car immortal. An engine always full of clean oil almost never dies. A cup low, ignored for a month, and you have started sanding the inside of your own engine. And the last habit is not a fluid at all. It is patience. The first minute after you start a cold engine, go easy. Let the fluids wake up and spread before you ask the car to work hard. In the taxi yard, the drivers who babied that first cold minute got twice the life out of the same car as the ones who stabbed the pedal cold. It costs nothing. It is just knowing. Do these things and you have the whole system. Now let me tell you why it matters more than money. A car that dies at 120,000 miles and a car that runs past 300,000 are not 2 different cars. Very often they are the same car, treated 2 different ways. One person changed the fluids and one did not. That is the whole difference, and over a lifetime that difference is not small. A car costs you tens of thousands of dollars. If your habits let you keep a car 20 years instead of 8, you have skipped buying 2 or 3 whole cars. That is a house down payment. That is a child's school. That is years of your life you did not have to spend working just to sit in traffic in a newer version of what you already had. And it is not only your money. Think of what it takes to build a car. The steel, the mining, the shipping, the smoke. The greenest car in the world is very often the one already sitting in your driveway. Kept alive, not replaced. Every year you keep a good car running is a year no factory had to build its replacement. The people who taught me this were not thinking about the earth. They were thinking about waste, plain waste. And to them, throwing away a machine that still had life in it was a kind of sin. It turns out the two things are the same thing. Here is the wisdom my father gave me, and it took me 40 years to understand how deep it goes. He said, "A car does not die of old age. It dies of neglect that somebody profitable told you was normal." Read that again. Everything that kills a car early was a choice. Usually not your choice. Someone decided the fluid was filled for life. Someone decided the manual did not need that line anymore. Someone decided a shutter at 100,000 miles should send you to a showroom instead of to your own driveway with a $6 bottle in your hand. None of it was fate. It was all a decision, made by someone who does not have to drive your car or pay your bills. You can decide differently, and you can start tonight. Here is what I want you to do before you go to sleep. Go out to your car, pop the hood, find the transmission dipstick if your car still has one, and pull it out. Look at the fluid on the end. Fresh fluid is bright, clean, cherry red, and it smells like almost nothing. If what you see is brown or dark, or it smells burnt, like toast left too long, your transmission has been begging you for that $6 bottle for a long time. And it is not too late, as long as you do the gentle drain and fill and not the flush. And if you go looking and find there is no dipstick at all, no way to even check, sealed shut, that right there is the whole story I've been telling you, built into the metal so you would never look. Then do one more thing. Tell me in the comments what you found, your car, your miles, and the color of that fluid, bright red or burnt brown. I read them. I want to know how many of you have been driving on burnt coffee without ever being told to look. And tell me if you order the bottle. I want to hear how it goes. The men in my family knew this. The taxi mechanics in Nagoya know this. The fellow whose truck crossed 1,000,000 miles knew it, even if he could not have told you the science. It is not clever. It is not secret in the way of a magic trick. It was only made to feel secret, by leaving one small line out of a book. Now you have it back. Next time, I am going to tell you about the one sound your car makes about 3 weeks before the water pump quits. Most people hear it and think it is the belt, or the air conditioner, so they turn up the radio and drive right past the warning. By the time the temperature needle climbs, the head gasket is already gone, and the cheap fix has become the expensive one. It is a specific sound. It comes at a specific time, and once you know it, you will never be caught by it. I will show you exactly what to listen for. Until then, keep the fluids clean, go easy on that first cold minute, and remember, the machine will outlast you if you let it. It was built to. Somebody just hoped you would not find out.